Hey, it's Ember. I'm here today on this beautiful holiday to talk about um, really love and a deep inspection of self that can help give rise to the depth of love and soul. And one thing that I want to say is I have gone about HRT through injection. And first of all, for anyone wondering, I was scared of needles, but I guess that's how badly I wanted this. So, yeah, I'm not scared anymore. I'm happy to do it every time. But during my first injection, it was like this unusually quick feeling of a true anchoring of soul. Although it sounds very poetic, it feels like this healing waterfall falling onto my heart almost relatively instantly. Within a day or so, I felt this difference that felt endogenous to my body, arising from the most core part of me, you might say. And so then, just to think about it, it's like a lifetime of an internal dissonance of self that was instead brought into a harmony that I had never felt before. And I just kept saying, is this real? Of course I thought about placebo and all these things, but here I am standing a month and 3 weeks in. Um, and, uh, and so, uh, yeah, so there was this embodiment of a core that I had only touched dimly, or at a distance previously. And so this whole process, in a sense, has felt like a journey through love. As I'm going to say, like both intrapersonal love inside yourself and interpersonal love, like between people. And love before, in many ways, and that I'm now seeing more than ever, felt like something that was, boxed in, possibly layered, conditional, attachment based. And it shaped the way I saw myself, and the way I understood connection. Whether you could be worthy, whether you had worked hard enough to be recognized in such a way or receive such an intimacy of heart. But that's really not the way it goes. And it's this process that has shown me that so boldly, and made me feel the heat of a flame that I knew was there, but now I know unequivocally. And so one thing, to point out here is that without self-inspection, you don't you have this chance to get caught inside one of those imprints. And we're all human beings, and we're all, part of a human tribe type of thing, and we're genetically predisposed to connect in those ways. And so all of us have this connection to be seen and wanted and love, in reciprocal fashion. But many of us are caught up in these versions of imprinted selves that hold us back from true vulnerability and true surrender to that process. And so self-inspection, this want to be curious about what's inside, is one of the key cornerstones here, at least in the story that I'm now, promulgating to you guys. And I think that it's really important to be able to look into your own heart and soul. And so a true self-love, a true vulnerability and surrender to the true soul, your true magnetism, without hesitancy, without feeling strange about things, without feeling like you need to fit yourself into another model on someone else's behalf, or whatever it may be, or culture's behalf. That's where you rewrite the script. That's where you become, vulnerable in a way that allows you to both pour out that light and to receive it, or love. And so in my own story, it's felt like there was always this light inside me, or like love inside me, that I really wanted to pour out of my heart, like in a very passionate way. But it always felt like there was this tangle of like social circumstances, or the box that I was in, that in almost like a physical way I want to describe, that it wants to shoot out, but it gets straitjacketed or hit down certain hallways of self or culture that don't allow it to come out fully. And it kind of reminds me of almost the inside out shirt concept that I was bringing up, where it's my whole life, it was almost like it felt like my shirt was on inside out, and like there was no way to get that purity of sense of self totally on the outside. And so, you know, in a way, it wasn't that I was necessarily inside out. You might be able to say that the world was inside out, in the sense that for myself, the world was felt through milky barriers rather than the true harmony and resonance of self. And so for me, I was viewing everything through several layers of filter in a way that was blocking me, even though I had this passion to pour out. And so light also, not only is this something that you need to pour out in a way, but in a way that, we all want to receive it deeply within our own heart. And if you have your shades pulled down in your house and your way of reacting to that level of surrender and vulnerability is to pull your shades down, you're going to miss every sunrise. You're going to miss, every sunset. And you're going to create circumstances and relationships that you are not showing up as your true, vulnerable, authentic self, and thus robbing yourself of true senses of intimacy. And so many of us, I've learned through this process, do see love as conditional, transactional, or attachment-based. But for me, it's become incredibly clear, and I actually have song lyrics about this. Love is not a currency, it's a force. And, for example, how could you create healthy boundaries and healthy relationships when you're standing within some boxed up, conditionally based, transactionally based, or just like a quicksand of self, in the sense that if you had never known your operating system, the core of you blocked up by imprints telling you who you should be, then what you send out there is this quicksand of self, this sense of not sitting at an anchored core. And so when we know ourselves, even if our identity is still shifting, when you can feel that core of yourself, then you give yourself the opportunity to truly connect with yourself and others in a way that may have not been very apparent to you or operationally, available in the circumstances that you were in. And so you might say that real love requires this anchoring of self, that it's not something that you find outside yourself. It's something that grows when you're fully standing in your own truth. It magnetizes, it comes your way. The Red Sea parts, the secret door opens. And it's part of the magical quest type, cosmic consciousness, spiritual quest that I like to also promulgate within this stuff. And it pulls into my theory of everything, but in the same way, it can be brought in a more narrow sense to this discussion about trans identity and love and that type of thing. That, when we truly engage with that sacred quest of individuation, things are pulled our way in a sense, and the key it lies in your heart, not outside of it. And so you could say that deep interpersonal love is like a threading together of two souls into a symbiosis. And so what does that take? It takes a heart that's wide open. It takes a soul that's wide open. That means that love is something to surrender to be vulnerable to, and not something to pull your shades down and come at it with a dismissive or fearful avoidance, because you'll never get there and you'll be robbing yourself of one of the most essential experiences as a human being. And so I think, in my mind, that union of souls there is not something to rid ourselves of our individuality, but actually the most vulnerable threading of true individuality into something that's greater than its parts, if you hear what I'm saying. And I think that's the process of the cosmos at large right there. And so you could say that, intrapersonal love is almost the same. It's a deep mirror into your own heart and soul. And you cannot be the type of person who says, you know what, those skeletons in my closet, let's just leave them there and keep it closed, because you know what, this life is stressful enough and I don't need to deal with that, because you are ridding yourself. It's like Ram Dass says, our true task is to have our hearts be open and break again and again and again. Because to make yourself coarse to the world is to put on blinders, in a sense that you will always have this view upon the world that becomes coarse unto itself, just because of your own blockage of your own heart. And so transactional love, like many people know, says, what do I get from you? But real love asks, how does your presence bring out more and reveal more of me and make us greater than either of us could be alone? And so when I talk about that level of vulnerability and surrender, that is, what I'm talking about. It's not vulnerability for vulnerability's sake, and it's vulnerability in trusting of some sort of deeper cosmic magnetic force that's bringing and threading souls together at a level that's, creating true symbiosis. And so then, of course, if you feel really being seen, you will fear like a rear if you fear really being seen, you will fear real love in that sense, because your shades are down. You're not looking out there at the neighborhood and what's going on. You're there safe, alone in your little safe space. But guess what? You'll never have that sunlight pour through and open your heart in that way. And love is not something to be corralled, captured, or contained. It simply is. Love is like the fire free flowing from an ember. And when you step into that fire, you don't get burned. You become illuminated.